Hello, and welcome to this edition of Lift Every Voice, a program of the Louisville branch NAACP in which we tend to try to inform the community as to things that we're working on, things that are going on in our community, always striving to implement the mission of the NAACP, which is to fight for equal justice in education, employment, and in the criminal justice system. Louisville has gone through some trying times over the past few months, and one of the most trying times has been that around the killing of Breonna Taylor. A lot of information was on the front burner at the time of the killing, but since then, things have tended to quiet down. So what we'd like to do on this episode is to come back and revisit what is going on with the Breonna Taylor matter, its current status, and look at some of the things that we should have been looking at all along, and to bring to your attention things that you in the community can do. I'm pleased for this episode to have with me Jan Waddell, a local attorney in Louisville, and as I said, Jan Waddell, criminal justice extraordinaire, a very dynamic individual who has done a lot of criminal work and understands the criminal justice system better than anyone that I know. Welcome, Jan.
Thank you, Dr. Ray.
Okay. Well, Jan, what I want to start with is to talk about the current status of matters in the relating to the Breonna Taylor killing. And I'd like to go through maybe several different organizations or entities with them, and so bring the people up to date on what's happening, if anything, or where we are, and then we're going to get into some more details. So I'm going to start first with the city of Louisville in terms of its response. We know that the city adopted an ordinance for a civilian review board a few weeks ago or a few days ago. But in terms of making corrective changes, where is the city of Louisville, if you know?
I don't really know. I believe what has happened, though, is the city paid the $12 million settlement, which I didn't think was near enough. But they've waited for things to quiet down, and that's what's happened. Okay.
Well, let's continue with the city, LMPD. You know, there were some things that the city council did in terms of banning no-knock warrants, but in terms of kinds of reforms within LMPD or changes in their practices or training or any of those things, what is happening with LMPD?
LMPD will tell you that they'll change. They'll tell you that they will implement these things. They'll do something better next time around, and then they just won't do it. Mm-mm. They'll, with the misidentified Ford case that I had a few years ago, the police chief who just got fired said they would use cell phone evidence when there was a question about the suggestive identification procedures being used in an arrest, but they never did it. Okay.
So LMPD, a lot of talk in terms of what they can do and where they're going. Let's talk about the Commonwealth Attorney, Tom Wine. In the original shooting, Tom Wine declared a conflict of interest and passed the case in terms of investigation of LMPD off to the Attorney General of the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Since then, there's been a lot of discussion, a lot of talk around Tom Wine needs to reconvene a grand jury or to reassert himself. In terms of, to your knowledge, what is Tom Wine doing now, if anything, and what do you think he ought to be doing at this point in time?
Tom Wine is not doing anything about it. He's not going to do anything about it. And what he should do is follow his conscience, which I guess maybe there's a lack thereof. He should, and he could do it. He could, there is no legal impediment or any conflict really, because they've dismissed the charges against Kenneth Walker. He could pursue the charges against the police if he wanted to. He doesn't want to. He's not going to. He's waiting for the fervor to die down, and it has died down. So he has no reason to move forward.
Well, let's talk about that conflict of interest. Yeah, the charges against Walker were in fact dismissed.
They were dismissed without prejudice.
Without prejudice.
Yes.
And so is his hiding behind that really where his conflict lies, and so he could easily correct that?
Yes, he could.
And how does he correct that?
By dismissing charges against Kenneth Walker with prejudice. But of course, if he did that, then he would open up the police officers to a lawsuit for Kenneth Walker. As long as the charges are dismissed without prejudice, then Kenneth Walker cannot bring a successful civil action against the police department themselves.
Okay, but Walker has sued, has he not, the city?
Yes,
okay.
But again, charges have not been dismissed with prejudice, so that's not going to succeed. On that, it's going to have a lack of jurisdiction.
Okay, now let's move on. Let's talk about the Attorney General of the Commonwealth, Daniel Cameron, who was the original prosecutor, convened the grand jury, and we know that that grand jury did not bring back any indictments for anything that happened as it relates to Breonna Taylor or Mr. Walker in the apartment. The one indictment did come down related to a white couple who was next door, not anything related to the people who were actually in the apartment.
Well, what does that tell you? Daniel Cameron has been I cannot express how disappointed I am in him. It's just, I mean, it's shocking. It's very shocking to me, but it's the same kind of shocking reaction I've had to people who have ignored all the lies and stuff that McConnell and Trump have done over the last 4 years. We've just come accustomed to people who are Republicans doing what they want to do.
Okay, when you say that what Cameron done was shocking to you, tell me what you mean by shocking to you.
He didn't present all the evidence that he could have presented to the grand jury. If you look at the document that has been posted by the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, so it's not that long. I think it's about 26 pages, with everything that it has to do in relation to the injustice that befell Breonna Taylor. You can see a lot of what has gone wrong in this system, and a lot of the things that Daniel Cameron could have done and didn't do that could have brought justice for Breonna. He had no intention of doing it right.
Okay, and let's talk about the U.S. Attorney here in the Western District of Kentucky. In regards to the U.S. Attorney, what do you know? What the status of their investigation, or what is going on, or any expectations for anything coming forward from there?
We haven't seen anything, but I expect we will once Biden is sworn into office. I think we'll get some sort of indication of what the civil rights violations that might be prosecuted against the police and the LMPD department.
Okay. So you think it's all tied up with political parties? It
has been. I mean, if you look at what Daniel Cameron did, that was strictly political. It was so shocking to me that he would have the audacity to stand in front of everybody on the camera, in front of the whole United States, well, actually in front of the world,
yeah,
and do what he did, and did it with impunity, like nobody can touch me for doing it, and nobody has.
Speaking of which, when he said nobody can touch me, I can do it with impunity, we're at a point or inflection point. And the question is, as it relates to all of them, the city, LMPD, Commonwealth Attorney, the U.S. Attorney, the Attorney General, what is it that we can do, and what should the community be doing to engage this process of the criminal justice system to find justice for Breonna?
What we need to do as a community and as a nation and as a people is to gear our children and our college students in a direction to go into the criminal justice field as attorneys and other people who work inside that system. Until we do so, all we're going to be doing is shouting from the outside to voice our complaints without doing anything positive to solve the problem. What I propose that we do in all of our historically black colleges and universities is to start programs to gear our children, our college students who want to be lawyers, to do so, to pursue professions in the criminal justice system. Until we do that, we're not going to get a full picture of what's going on every day in our halls of justice throughout the United States of America.
So that's a longer term view in terms of what needs to be done. As we look at Louisville, Jefferson County, the Commonwealth of Kentucky, and looking at how do we get Tom Wine to move, or get Daniel Cameron to reconvene, or Daniel Cameron to step down, or any of those things, what is it the community, where are the pressure points that the community should be touching to see if we can proceed to get, well, in one case, maybe a new grand jury to hear evidence in the case of Breonna Taylor, getting the Commonwealth attorney to in fact proceed, or those things. Where are those points where the community ought to be pushing, and what kinds of things should it be saying and doing?
I actually don't think there's anything that we can do other than what we're doing now. We're talking about it. We're voicing our complaints. We've had protests, but that didn't move Tom Wine, did it? It didn't move Daniel Cameron, did it? Well, I say it and I say again. What we need to do is start from the beginning. You know, police have indoctrinated, you know, generation after generation of police officers, and from class to class to class for the last 200 years. Starting out as slave catchers, they've gone on to be policemen of black communities. And what they're doing is the same thing that they've done for the last 100 years, they continue to do now and will continue to do in the future unless we effect the changes in the criminal justice system that we need to do. And to do that, we need, you know, black lawyers or any lawyers who of conscience will look at the criminal justice system and implement the changes that need to be implemented from the time a person is arrested until the time justice is served in each and every individual case. Until we get people who are committed to doing that, the police have no reason to change. The politicians have no reason to change. They'll just keep doing what they're doing.
You and I have had previous conversations, and we talked about the composition of judges, you know, how many black judges there are, and how many black prosecutors there are. Won't you, tell our audience some about your opinion in terms of the number of black judges and how we need to, in fact, change or increase those numbers? And it all ties back to you talking about getting more black lawyers involved. Well,
I'm going to say it the way that I've been saying it for the last few months. And nobody wants to bring this up, and Dr. Ray, you didn't bring it up either. Mm-hmm. But what we have in our judicial system here in Jefferson County, in the Hall of Justice, we have 23 judges. Out of those 23 judges, we don't have any black men who are judges, even though black men make up probably about half of the people who show up in criminal prosecutions in Jefferson District Court. The lack of diversity in gender is astounding. You have no black male judges.
In district court?
In district court. Now in circuit court we have 2.
You're right.
But the most shocking representation of lack of diversity in the Jefferson County District Court is the number of women who are judges in the Jefferson District Court system, and the number of white women as compared to black women. Out of 23 judges in district court, 2 are male, white males. We have 3 black females, but the rest are white women judges, 18 of them. 18 out of 23 judges in Jefferson District Court are white women judges. If this was the other way around, if we had 18 black female judges, people would be screaming to the high heavens about lack of diversity. If we had 18 black male judges, everybody would be screaming something's wrong with the system. There is something wrong with the system because we have too many judges of the same gender, female, and we have too many judges of the same race, which would be 21 out of 20 out of 23. So when we look at, when a black defendant goes into the court, if he has been wrongly arrested by a police officer and he wants to have a trial and he wants to have justice out of the system, he has to deal with white women prosecutors. There are no black men prosecutors. He has more than likely to deal with a white female judge, white cop, and then you wonder what's wrong with it. Well, then we wonder what's wrong with the system, why we're not getting justice, because we don't have enough black lawyers in the system practicing criminal law, looking for criminal justice in the system that has denied criminal justice to black people for too long.
So, you know, that is beginning a part of criminal justice reform. And as we look at the criminal justice system itself, are there ideas for reform? You know, you talked about increasing the number of folks of African descent, black folks, men, particularly on the bench, in terms of, so that when criminal justice defendants appear, they appear before people who look like them. What kinds of other ideas in terms of criminal justice reform should we be looking at, and the community ought to be pushing?
What we need to do, and what has been done in the past, is when judges in the past, the governors, Kentucky governors in the past, have appointed black judges to the bench, because we know that if a judge is sitting on the bench, he has a better chance of being elected the next time the election cycle comes around. When the two black judges that we have in circuit court were appointed by the governor, and they both won their elections afterwards. What we need to do for criminal justice reform, first and foremost, is get Governor Beshear to appoint black male judges and black female judges in circuit court, as well as in the district court, so that we reduce the lack of diversity that currently exists.
Okay, you know, when you talk about reform, the other thing, and I want to go back to the Breonna Taylor matter in particular, you and I have had discussions about whether there was in fact sufficient evidence to in fact bring about an indictment, or at least for a presentation to a grand jury. You've raised questions about what you call, is it 96 seconds?
No, 68 seconds.
68 seconds. So tell us about these 68 seconds and your theory in terms of what has taken place and would serve as foundation for a new grand jury.
My theory is supported by the evidence that we know exists from the videos that were taken at the scene, not from the police officers who executed the no-knock warrant that wasn't a no-knock warrant, or the murder of Breonna. I didn't say killing, I said murder, because I believe the evidence shows that Breonna Taylor in fact was murdered. I say this based on the 68 seconds between the last shot that Mattingly fired and the first shot that was fired by Cosgrove after Mattingly exited the apartment of Breonna Taylor once he was shot. What we have in our community is a system that we call Shot Spotter. In case you don't know what that is, if you all around the city of Louisville, there are cameras that and recording devices on top of telephone poles that record when a gunshot is fired in the black community or in high crime areas throughout the city. What that does, it allows the police dispatch to tell the officers nearest the area where the shot spotter designates the shot was fired from to respond immediately, rather than waiting for someone in the community to call and say somebody's been shot over here. They can go. It cuts to the chase. It allows the police to get to the system, very, very quickly. Shot spotter evidence is never referred to by Daniel Cameron or the LMPD, because it would show that there's 68 seconds between the time that the first shot was fired and the other 31 shots that were fired.
So has there been any push by anybody to look to get the evidence from the shot spotter cameras?
No.
Okay.
No, I asked about it a little earlier. I asked Andrew Wolfson, the reporter for the Courier-Journal, who did a lot of reporting on that, and we discussed it, but nothing ever came of it.
Okay. When you look at the Legal Defense Fund report in terms of analysis of the grand jury proceedings, they found several places where there was insufficient or proper procedure, or what was assumed to be normal procedures was in fact not followed. in terms of how the case was presented to the grand jury not being given an opportunity to know what the array of charges could be, and for the grand jury to make its own decision in regards to what the evidence proved to them, as opposed to the prosecutors having made a decision that, what took place was in fact justified, and therefore you can only present certain things and not everything.
What gets me from the start is that we have accepted the statement by the offending officers that nobody had a camera on that night. No one questioned that at all, and I don't believe it. I believe they had the cameras. I believe they have concealed that evidence because that evidence would show exactly what they did. I mean, how far-fetched is it to believe that all of them all together, nobody had a camera on? Every other officer that appeared on that scene that night had a body cam on. Why should we even start to believe that they didn't?
Okay. So what else, in addition to that, what else should we be looking for and raising questions about?
Well, you look at Hankinson going through the crime scene, saying that he only fired his shots because there was somebody there with a rifle, and then mysteriously there's a rifle shell found at the scene. I'm sure that they're saying that inferring that Hankinson himself is the one who dropped it in the crime scene when he wasn't supposed to be in the crime scene in the first place. Okay. I mean, there's so many things, so many different levels of police misconduct in the investigation that was presented to the grand jury, or not presented to the grand jury, I should say, that should have been considered by a grand jury. The more telling one is that in that 68 seconds I keep complaining about, between the time that Manley fired his last shot and Cosgrove fired his first shot, gave Breonna Taylor time to move into the hallway and to confront Cosgrove, who just shot her down. It's hard for me to believe that in that small hallway, in that small apartment rather, and Breonna standing 10 feet from where Cosgrove was standing with his gun drawn, that it took him 16 shots to hit her 6 times. I just don't believe it.
Okay. So, all of this, I guess in terms of it's most recently evolved into the creation of a civilian police review board with an inspector general is one of the outcomes of that. This body at this point does not have subpoena powers, which is one of the things that need to. What are your expectations for this civilian review board? What do you think it will do that wasn't done before by other bodies?
It's all who you get on the civilian review board. They didn't ask you, did they?
No, they have not.
They didn't ask me, did they? It's like when right before Thurgood Marshall died, he said, well, you can't just any black judge is not going to do. You got to have the right kind of person. And who did we get? We got Clarence Thomas.
Yeah.
So I know some of the people who are on the civilian review board, and I don't see anybody on there who has a history of taking radical stances against the LMPD. Mm-hmm. Anybody who I would trust to dig deep into what has occurred, but in fact, without subpoena powers, they can't dig too deep anyway. Mm-hmm. So that's the one thing that they need to have the power to do. But I don't believe that. I don't know that power can even be granted to a civilian review board, can it?
Why not? It would take legislation by the Kentucky General Assembly to do it.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, so now we can't do it anyway.
Right now you cannot do it, and that's one of the things that really needs to take place. What I have been most amazed about is, as we talk about this, in terms of trying to build and enhance community police relations, the position taken by the FOP president in terms of his public statements. Most of them appear to me to be like pouring cold water on a movement, trying to get some things done, and that's what been the way it has evolved. Well, we've got just a few more seconds. I'm going to take a break. We'll be back in a few minutes with in a few seconds, I think, with Jan Waddell to wrap this up and talk more about Breonna Taylor killing and things that we as a community can do and should do and look forward to doing. We'll be right back.
I am the largest,
the oldest.
I am the baddest,
the boldest.
I am protecting our voting rights
and our environment.
I am ending racial profiling
and fighting HIV/AIDS.
I am advancing economic equality
and equality
for all.
I am.
I am.
I am.
I am NAACP. Are you?
Take a stand at IamNAACP.org.
We're back, and my guest today is Jan Waddell, and we've been talking about the Breonna Taylor matter, the Breonna Taylor killing in terms of things that have happened in there. And we were ending up in talking about the FOP and their role in terms of community relation, enhancing community relation, but more importantly, their role in protecting police officers no matter what. I don't know what your assessment or view of the FOP is, Jan, but would you like to share that?
Well, the FOP has traditionally done what you just said. They back up the police whether they're right or wrong. Mm-hmm. And they've got a history of doing it, and they're going to continue to have a history of doing it. We shouldn't expect any less. What we should be doing is getting more black professionals inside the criminal justice system to combat that, so that we can make changes, so that we can make significant changes within the criminal justice system. We simply do not have enough black professionals practicing law in the system or being engaged in other aspects of pursuing careers in the criminal justice system in order to effect a change. Until we do that, the FOP will continue to say they're going to do things, say they're going to implement changes, and just go on their merry way, because no one is going to challenge them inside the criminal justice system before the courts. Without that, we don't have any power.
You know, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you also, you know, we now have an interim police chief, Yvette Gentry, who has enjoyed a pretty good reputation over the years. Are you optimistic about what she may be able to do?
I am optimistic about Yvette. I've known Yvette since she was a rookie. I've been down there that long. And she's always been straightforward and a matter-of-fact kind of person, and I believe that she is inclined to do the right thing and that she will face challenges that she needs to face. And I have confidence in her.
Well, that's very good. You know, I think what has been clear from this conversation that we've had with Jan Waddell is that if we want to change the criminal justice system, then we have to figure out how to work within. And one of the ways of working within is having more individuals, black individuals, working within the criminal justice system, and in particular, more black lawyers practicing criminal law. You know, I myself was and still am a corporate lawyer. I know the corporate world well. The criminal justice world I do not know. But we've had Jan here today who's talked about several things that we need to do, but probably the most important one is getting more individuals, black individuals, lawyers in particular, in the criminal justice system. That means increasing the number of African Americans who are in fact attorneys who are doing criminal work. It means holding people accountable. It means speaking out, being involved, and doing what we need to do. We stand at a place where we face a tremendous challenge in terms of changing our community and getting justice for Breonna Taylor. Yeah, I can tell you that NAACP is all in regards to doing this. And if you would like to join the Louisville branch NAACP, you can reach us at LouisvilleChapter@naacp.org. You can call us at 776-7608, or you can visit our office at 1245 Catalpa Court. For the NAACP to be effective, it needs individuals who are members, it needs individuals who are foot soldiers, it needs individuals who are willing to be engaged in the fight for justice. And unless we fight, we will not get justice. But unless we lift our voice and be heard, we will not get justice. The NAACP is here to help. Join us.